to the Straight Out of BS podcast. Thank you guys for your continued support. Really appreciate it. Please continue to share the video, like the video, comment on the video. Anything to interact with the video, it really helps the algorithm. We're at 700 subscribers. Let's try and get to 1,000 and keep on going. Get the word out there. I really appreciate all the help that you guys have given me. Links are in the description if you're interested in supporting my work. I want to do a moment of silence for the person still struggling with intrusive thoughts or addiction or anything. So on the count of 3, I'm going to do a moment of silence. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for that. And without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce my guest for the day. Go ahead and introduce yourself and where you went and what years.
My name is Sarah. I went to Carolina Springs Academy from 2000 to October of 2000 to February of 2002, and then from February of 2002 to the end of that year, December 2002, I went to Dundee Ranch Academy.
Okay. Okay. And walk us through your childhood and what led up to you being sent to the program.
I don't really know. It's been kind of like I've talked to my mom about it and we've kind of gone back and forth, but I had just turned 13 in June of 2000, and I got kicked off of an American Heritage Tour. I'm from New Hampshire originally, and they do an American Heritage Tour for the 8th grade students every single year, and I got kicked off for passing notes about wanting to try weed. And so I got kicked off the tour, and then my mom said that she was going to take me somewhere. She says she doesn't remember this, but I remember her telling me she was going to take me to Disneyland and that I wasn't going to miss out on anything. And then, so then we went to, we landed in South Carolina, and my mom told me, I didn't really understand geography at that time. My mom told me that it was just a few states away, or it was the next state over, and then I ended up in Carolina Springs. But from what she told me, I was listening to bad music and I was hanging out with bad people. And so she was afraid that I was going to head down the same road as my sister, because my sister had just gotten sent to my grandmother's house for doing drugs and drinking and having sex and stuff like that. So she was afraid I was going to end up down the same road.
Okay. And did you get transported, or did your parents bring you up there? What happened? Walk us through that.
My mom brought me. We flew from New Hampshire to South Carolina. She told me that we were a state away or a couple of states away, so we were just going to drive there. It was cheaper to fly into South Carolina, and then we drove up to this, because most of these programs are out in the middle of nowhere. So I thought that was a little weird when we drove up to this house out in the middle of nowhere. And then there was a lady that said, "I'm going to be your buddy." And I was like, didn't really understand what that meant. We were going to Disneyland, so I didn't understand why I needed a buddy. And then we went into the building, and that's when they started talking about the school, and I was confused, and my mom started crying, and then they told me what was really going on at that point.
Okay. And you did a little bit, but walk us through the rest of what you remember about when you first got there. Did they bud you up with somebody? Sounds like they did. Did they give you any physical rule manual or anything like that? Go over the rules with you. What happened when you first got there?
I don't remember getting a manual. I really don't. I just remember being with a buddy for about 3 days. You got about 3 days of someone, because you weren't allowed to talk. So when you have a buddy, you are allowed to talk for those 3 days so that you could understand the rules and you could ask questions. And I just remember having a buddy for 3 days, and then that was it. And I did actually get my file back from them. Someone recently sent me my file. So there was a lot. I can see, looking back at the stuff that I wrote and the corrections I was getting, that there was a lot of confusion, because like I said, 3 days really isn't enough time to understand these rules, and we only got 3 days. So I was like, for up until I got my file and saw the documentary and stuff like that, I always kind of felt like like I did something wrong. Like I couldn't really understand. I couldn't really grasp it. But, you know, when I saw the documentary, it was like 3 days was not enough time to understand all the rules that these programs had. So I wish we would have got a manual, but we did not. We just kind of learned as we went.
Okay. And how long after you got there did they put you through your first seminar? And what was it, orientation or discovery?
It was 3 weeks and it was discovery.
Okay.
And I did not pass clearly because I didn't, had only been there for 3 weeks. And so, again, when I went through my file, that's how I found out I went to the first seminar after 3 weeks. And they just said I wasn't ready because I was still in denial about the fact that I should be there.
Okay. And how long after you got there did it take for everything to fully sink in?
4 months. I think like 4 months. I remember I stopped crying at 4 months. Like I cried every day that I was there. Like it was kind of like surreal. Like I would wake up, not open my eyes yet, and think that the whole thing was a dream and that I was really home. And then I'd open my eyes and I was there. And so I would cry almost every single day. About 4 months I stopped. And about a year in is when I actually, so like level 1, you obviously start at level 1. Level 2 is just points, and level 3 is when you start the vote up process. And I think it took about 8 to 9 months for me to get to level 3. And I think that's when I wouldn't say things started sinking in, but it's when I started pretending like I had problems so that I could fix the problems that I had. You know.
How many times did it take you to get through your first seminar?
3 times. I passed my 3rd time.
Okay, and do you remember your I am statement?
I don't remember my I am stand. Something about worthy. I remember that, but I don't remember the whole thing because it was like you had like several. You're like, I am worthy, accountable. It was like this big long thing.
Okay, and did you make it through focus?
Yes, I made it through the rest of the seminars the first time.
Okay, and do you remember what your stretch was?
Oh yeah, it was Girls Just Want to Have Fun by Cyndi Lauper, and it was like girls just want to have fun and TLC, No Waterfalls or something. It was like a mashup between the two. But what I remember very specifically about Focus was that they teased my hair to make me look like Cyndi Lauper, and I hated it because they just destroyed my hair. You know, they like took it and put hairspray in my hair, and they didn't like the fact that I had bangs. They said it was part of my image, so they like hairsprayed my bangs all the way back. And it's funny because when I look at pictures of me from South Carolina to Costa Rica, I didn't have bangs in Costa Rica, so I'm pretty sure they made me grow them out.
Okay. And how long after you got there did you get your first phone call?
7 months.
Okay. And how was your program? Was it easy for you to get points? Did you try to get points but get consequenced, or did you say fuck it?
I really did not want to go against anything. Like I wasn't really I wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. So I tried to follow the rules the best that I could, but it seemed like I was really sad at first. Now I went through the whole I don't have any records from Costa Rica because that place is destroyed. But I went through the whole like year and a half that I spent in Costa Rica, and it seemed like I was really sad. And then once I started accepting that I was there and I started getting happier, a lot of the comments that they made about me every day was that I was immature and that I goofed off too much. And then about a year in, I started like getting serious, and then they said that I was too serious. Like it was like no matter what I did, I wasn't going to get their approval. And so, I mean, I tried, but it just seemed like every time I tried to switch my personality to fit what they wanted, they found a reason that wasn't what the way they wanted me to go. So, I mean, I really tried. I think I got like a Cat 3 maybe 2 or 3 times the entire time I was there. So I really didn't like honestly break the rules.
Yeah. Did you spend any time in study hall or interaction?
We had worksheets. We had worksheets and OP, which was observation placement. I went to OP one time in Costa Rica, but I was in worksheets a lot. And the thing about it is like the times that I was in worksheets, when I read through this file, the times I was in worksheets, it really wasn't anything that I like purposely did. Like I was staffing a seminar and I left my, you had a little caddy for when you went to the shower, and I left my caddy and they gave me a correction for every single thing that was in that caddy that got left in the bathroom. And then if you got too many of the same corrections in 1 week, you would get a trend and then you would go on probation. And so it was like, I remember that was like the one time I went into worksheets when I was an upper level, and I was like, like I was late to staff their seminar, and then they gave me a correction for every little thing that was, instead of just one correction for the caddy, they gave me a correction for everything that was in there. And then I went on probation for about 3 weeks.
Okay. And what was the stupidest thing you ever got a consequence for?
I think I posted it on Facebook, but I got a consequence for a probation, an academic probation. And I didn't know that I was on, I didn't know it was like a consequence. And I remember you had to write what the consequence was and how you were going to take accountability and correct it. And I wrote, I will correct this by knowing something I'm supposed to know or something. Cause I was like, what am I supposed to write on here? And there was like 2 to 3 lines on it and you had to fill it all out. Otherwise you got another correction. So I was just like, I guess I'll know what I'm supposed to know next time in the future.
Okay. And how long did it take? Did you graduate the program?
Yes, I graduated, and it took me 28 months.
Okay. How long did it take you to get onto the team or the upper levels?
16 months.
Okay.
I remember, it was after 14 months. I know that because I ended up seeing my mom for the first time at 14 months because there was like a PC1 seminar and you could qualify several different ways. And the only reason I qualified was because I had just been there too long. That was like my qualifying factor. So they just let me go. And I tried to ask my mom to take me home then. And then I tried again when I got upper level in my first visit. And then I stopped trying after that because I just kind of realized I wasn't going to go home till I graduated.
Okay. And what did you think of PC1?
I thought it was horrible. Only because they kind of like they had the parents circled up with their eyes closed, and they like instructed them not to open their eyes, and then they had us find our parent and stand in front of them, and then they had our parents reach out but not touch us. And like I'm crying, my mom's crying. It's been like over a year that I've seen her, and I was like, that's just horrible. Like the first time you see your kid in after that long, there should be like an embrace. There shouldn't be like, hey, reach out, but don't touch them. I thought I was so used to numbing my emotions at that point that it upset me, but I thought it was horrible for my mom. I thought that the parents shouldn't have had to do that. Yeah. I felt more bad for them than I did for myself.
Okay. And do you remember feeling like high or like anything like that after a seminar? Like they used to call it a seminar high.
Yeah. I see, looking back, like I thought I was like doing the right thing and my life's going to turn around and stuff like that. But looking back, I can't say that the high didn't have to do with the fact that I knew that I was getting closer to going home. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like you knew it was very, very important to pass these seminars. And I remember when I first got there, at this point in 2000, these seminars did not come but once every 3 months. So if you didn't pass, you added 3 months to your time automatically. Yeah. And so when you did pass, you were like, okay, there's 3 months done, on to the next one. So I don't know if the high had anything to do with that, but at the time I felt like I was just doing the right thing.
But you definitely felt the high or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, it's crazy because like I had found a picture online of my focus group, and like we're all smiling, and I was like, that seminar was horrible. Why are we all smiling? Why are we happy? Did they instruct us to smile? Were we happy? You know, because that was when we had to beat the floor, and I thought that was the most out. When we got to focus and they told us to beat the floor, I was like, at that point, I was like, this place is nuts. Like I was still kind of like, is it not? Is it good? Is it bad? And then when they told us to beat the floor, I was like, this is not a good place, because who does that to kids?
They didn't have you beat the floor in Discovery?
I don't remember. I just remember in Discovery, like them. I remember my eyes were closed. We're sitting on the floor, and they were like, think of your deepest, darkest. And mind you, I just turned 13 3 months before I went in. And they're like, think of your deepest, darkest, most shape. And I'm like, I have no clue. I have no clue. Like, I'm a kid. I was playing with Barbies a year ago. I don't have a deepest, darkest secret. And I just remember that being really confusing. And so I had to make stuff up. But I don't think I ever lied. I don't think I ever like said I did drugs and I didn't do drugs. But because I knew I was afraid, because the people there who had done drugs and had drank and had sex would know that I obviously didn't if I tried to describe it. So I went with smoking cigarettes, because I didn't have to describe that. You know, it was just smoking cigarettes. So I started telling people I was smoking cigarettes, and that's why I got sent there. So I came up with smoking cigarettes. That was my deepest, darkest secret.
Okay. Did they make you admit to things that you'd never done there before? Possibly.
No, they did not make me admit to things that I'd never done, but they, you know, I think what was disturbing was that they were just the constant telling me that I was immature, that I needed to grow up, and I was just like, at the time, I thought I was immature and that I needed to grow up, but like looking back at it, because I have kids that age now, I'm like, that's a 13-year-old. That's a 12-year-old. That's a 14-year-old. All this stuff was very normal for the age that I was. So I wasn't forced to, I did not get my period for a year because I was stressed out. And so I did get accused of being pregnant one time. And I was like, there's absolutely no way. I can't, I've never done that. And so I thought they were going to make me take a pregnancy test, but they did not. I think they probably talked to my mom and knew that that wasn't the case or why I was there. So other than that, I wasn't ever told that I did something I didn't do, but I was constantly told that I was immature.
Okay. And what level did you make it to at Carolina Springs?
I was level 4, and that's when I got sent to Costa Rica. They told me that it was the leadership program. And so they just opened up a program in Costa Rica, and they needed leaders to go down there and teach the staff down there how the rules, so that they could enforce the rules onto the kids.
Wait a minute. They had upper levels teach staff?
Yes. So
wow.
From what I was told, I don't know how true it is, but it was a hotel, and the hotel workers were the ones that worked there. So they kept their jobs. They just worked for the program. And so not all of them, but some of them, you know, they brought in Jamaicans from Jamaica, but like, as far as like the house moms, not the family moms, but the house, you know, moms, they were hotel workers. So they didn't know anything. So we were taught Spanish, and we were told that we we're going to go down there. And at the time, like, I was 14 years old, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Costa Rica. Cool. You know, I didn't think anything bad. I just thought it's got to be better than here. Like, can't be any worse than this place. I thought that South Carolina was unique. I knew there were other programs, and I knew that Mexico was bad. We knew Jamaica was bad. We knew Mexico was bad. But I figured maybe the one in Utah, maybe the one in New York, maybe all these other ones weren't as bad as South Carolina. I just, for some reason, I thought it was unique. But they were all kind of structured the same.
Okay. And what was the Hardest part about being at Carolina Springs, and how did you handle it?
I think the hardest part about being in Carolina Springs for me personally is when I went, I was the youngest person there. And I got made fun of a lot. No one believed me when I said I hadn't done the things that I had done. So um, we would circle up and we would pick a subject and we would go around the circle and sometimes it would be a fun one, sometimes a serious one. Like when the subject was, why are you here? For months I said, I don't know, and no one like believed me that I didn't do anything. And then another thing was like we would do a fun one like, what's your favorite clothing store? And I was from BFE, New Hampshire, so I had never been to a mall before. So when people were saying like Banana Republic, Hot Topic, all these like really big names, I had no idea what they were talking about. So I got made fun of a lot at first.
Okay. And sorry, I'm not yawning because you're boring. I fucking just do this. I don't know. My body just does this.
No, you're okay.
And what led up to you being sent to Costa Rica?
They just said we were going into this leadership program. And one thing I found really interesting was that so I knew my experience from the program. I didn't know the other side until the documentary came out, and I didn't know my mom's side until I got my files back. And about the end of my time in South Carolina, my mom told them that she couldn't afford it anymore. It was too much. It was her entire paycheck. So when I read the files, her paycheck at that time was $2,450 a month. And my tuition was $2,450 a month. So they basically were like, how much money do you make? Okay, this is your tuition. Like, so I don't know if people paid more or less, but that was my mom's tuition. And that was exactly how much she made. Luckily, she lived with someone who paid her bills. So all of her money went to my program. And so after they split up and she told them, I can't afford it anymore. And then then I dropped my level. That's when I got those corrections and I went on probation. And I think they tried that. And then they sent me to Costa Rica because I think Costa Rica was a lot cheaper to run than an American school. But my mom said she did not pay one single dime the entire time I was in Costa Rica. I was there almost a year. So it was interesting to me because I was like, if this whole thing was about money and my mom stopped paying, how did I get stuck there for a whole other year? Unless it had to do with the fact that they needed people to go down there and teach the staff how to run the program. Basically, we worked there. I barely went to school when I was in Costa Rica. I did more work than I did schooling.
Okay. And what was the hardest part about being in Costa Rica, and how did you handle it?
Well, it was a foreign country, and we had to ask for everything, and we were not fluent in Spanish. I mean, we became fluent in Spanish after a while, but like when you first got down there, I'm like looking back at this, like I would never send my kid, never. So I flew, this is only my second time flying ever in my life, and I flew out of the country, and they went and got my passport. I don't know how they did. I don't know how they got the picture of me or anything. But I have all the information in the file. But so they flew me to Costa Rica, and then it was just a guy with my sign waiting for me who didn't speak any English. And I'm very trusting and 14 years old. And like, well, if they said this is safe, this is safe. But like looking back, like I just got in the car with this guy, and it was like a 2-hour drive to the place. And the guy didn't speak any English. And then like so in order to get to the program in Costa Rica, you had to go up this mountain, and like this guy's just whipping around these corners up this mountain, doesn't speak any English. And at one point I'm like, am I safe? Like I think that was the hardest part. I got there and I realized I don't know the language. I don't know this country. I don't even know if I'm going to go to a program right now or if I'm getting kidnapped. I had no clue. That was kind of scary. But once I got there, I was like, okay, this is another, it was very structured the same. They wore the same outfits. And I was like, okay, I am at another program.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask this about both programs, but at Carolina Springs, did you hear about or witness any sexual abuse or grooming by the staff? Or student on student?
I didn't hear about any, but I was involved with a staff member in Costa Rica.
Okay, in Costa Rica, not at Carolina Springs?
No.
Okay, so nothing at Carolina Springs?
Mm-mm. Okay. I didn't hear about anything until after I got out. Then I heard about stuff.
Okay, and what about Costa Rica?
I was, I think it was a couple of months after I'd gotten there. There was one staff member. He showed me a little bit of extra attention. He was the director. Okay. And I kind of really quickly realized that I could probably use this to my advantage. He kind of let me get away with stuff. I ripped up a correction. Someone gave me a correction and I went up to him and I ripped it up right in front of him and he didn't do anything. And at that point I was like, I can pretty much do whatever I want to do and I'm not going to get in trouble with this guy. So at the time, I'm going to be honest, at the time I thought, but again, I was 14 and 15 in that program. I thought I was choosing that relationship. I was in control. I was I was controlling my program basically. Because up until this point, we had no control. So when someone is giving you a little bit of control, but in order to give it, you have to give something back. It didn't feel like I was being abused or anything like that. And then when I got out, I continued to talk to him and I did have an intimate relationship with him. Not in the program, but I knew it was leading up to that. And I think the other staff members knew too. And sometimes I wonder if that might have been the reason why my mom was able to get away with not paying them anything. So I really don't know the truth on that.
Okay, so at Costa Rica, was it more of a grooming relationship between you two, or was it so there was no sexual thing at all at Costa Rica? So it was more like grooming there, and that led up into intimacy afterwards. Is that?
Yeah. Because I think we both knew that we were not going to be able to this is not. I remember it was funny because I had a girl contact me afterwards, and she said, I didn't remember this, but she remembered it. She said that I was sick. I had the flu. And so I was in the girls' dorm room by myself because there was no staff member there. I was an upper level. I was allowed to stay by myself. And male staff are not allowed to go into the female dorm room, and female staff members are not allowed to go in the male dorm room without an escort. And he was there in my room, laying in my bed. And I remember she said that she walked in and he pulled her aside and told her, you cannot tell anyone, this cannot get out to anyone. And so from what she told me, he started giving her special treatment in order to be kind of the lookout for when, there was no touching or anything like that, but it was inappropriate. And I think he knew that. And that's why he started treating her a little bit better. I didn't know this I knew me and her were close, but I didn't know she was the lookout until she told me that.
Okay. At both of these places, did you finish a lot of schooling or any schooling, and did your credits transfer?
So when I came back home, I was halfway through 10th grade, but I did end up dropping out of high school. So I don't know. I hear a lot of people saying that the credits weren't real. By the time they got to college, they realized they didn't have any credits. So I wouldn't know if I did or didn't because I dropped out of high school before halfway through my 12th grade. But when I went into school, everything kind of went right back. The only thing that was kind of disturbing to me was that we got Spanish 1 and 2 credits just for being there. Like, we didn't take Spanish class. We just were there. And when I came back, I was trying to keep up with it. And I realized I really didn't know a lot of Spanish. Like, I thought I was like fluent and I was going to be able to come home and just continue my Spanish. And I went to Spanish 3 and I was like, I don't know anything. I was just learning, as I went.
Okay.
So that was disappointing for me.
Okay. And let's see, was there any runners at either of these places?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I hated it because we all had to get up. Like, if they ran at 3 o'clock in the morning, all of us got up and we counted and we waited until they found them. I mean, I think they were trying to make an example out of them. And I mean, I don't remember a runner in Costa Rica, but I mean, like, we were in the middle of the forest. We were in the middle of the jungle. Like, we had a crocodile that just hung out there. Like, didn't even feel safe on the campus, let alone off the campus. But I just remember the runners in South Carolina, and I remember having to get up at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and just wait until they found them.
Okay. Were you allowed to read books? And if so, did you read any good books in either of these places?
I think we were allowed to, but I didn't read anything that I remember.
Okay. And let's see. Okay, what led up to you going to Costa Rica? Like, how did that whole process happen? And did you fly there?
Yeah, I flew there. So they told me, now that I was upper level, that I was going to the leadership program and that it was in Costa Rica. And so about a month, maybe 2 months leading up to it, I would go to school, and then for an hour, there was a guy there. Him and the teacher were the only nice people there, but there was a guy there, and I just remember him. We would have like little mini Spanish lessons, because we needed, like, they just taught us like the important stuff, like, where's the bathroom. In Costa Rica, we had to ask for toilet paper. There wasn't like just toilet paper in our bathrooms. We had to ask for it to go to the bathroom. So that was like a really big deal. They wanted to teach us how to ask for that and how to, tell them what your name is and stuff like that. And we did have to count when we went through doors. And sometimes they would just make us line up and count. So we needed to know numbers in Spanish too, because we needed to be able to count as we went through the doors. Because that was a correction if you didn't know it.
Okay. And were you on prescription medications before you went to Carolina Springs?
Yeah, all throughout my childhood, they had me on and off Ritalin, and I was off Ritalin before I went to the program, but they tried to put me back on it, and I didn't. I told them, I said I didn't want to be on any medications, and they didn't put me on any medications. They tried telling me that I was crazy, but and they sent me to a counselor a couple of times, and there's notes all throughout my file where I try to convince them that I'm not crazy, that I just am upset because I got sent away.
Okay, so they didn't put you on any prescription medications when you were there. Okay. Did you ever work the kitchen, and how was the food in both of these places?
The food in South Carolina was terrible. It was like your bare minimum. About 4 times a week, we would just have sandwiches. And condiments were a level. You had to be a certain level to have condiments. So until you were that level, I think it was 2. It was 2. It wasn't 3. You had like dry bread, and like, I'm just looking back and I'm like, that was probably like the cheapest lunch meat, like bologna, the cheap Walmart cheese. Like, it was nasty. And then we had to eat 50% of everything that was on the plate. So if you had 3 things on your plate, you had to eat 50% of each. And they fed us beets one time, and it was so horrible trying to get through that. But, like, you'd have to eat salad without any dressing until you got to level 2. But I really like the food in Costa Rica. But it was cheap food. It was rice and beans. And I think that's basically, they tried to run this place as cheap as possible and charge people as much as possible to really get their return on income, or return on investment. But I did like the food in Costa Rica. There's lots of people who complained about the food in Costa Rica. I loved it. I thought it was great. But my comparison was South Carolina. So I don't know if I loved it because it was good food, or if I loved it because my comparison was dry hoagies and dry salad.
Okay. And how long were you in Costa Rica?
10 months.
Okay. And did you maintain level 4 when you got there, or did you have to start over?
I maintained it. I got dropped for refusing to be a receptionist. Once I said, I'm not doing that. I want to go to school. I'm getting behind. And then I got a refusal. And that was the one and only time I had to go to observation placement. And I think at the time I was like kind of getting a little cocky, and they were trying to make an example out of me, because like I was just doing what I wanted to do at that point. I didn't care. I was so frustrated with being there. I was so frustrated because I feel like with the level up process, not only did you have to impress all these staff and do all these seminars, but you had to be popular too, because your family decided whether you leveled up or not. And it was just exhausting having to like make sure everyone liked you. It's impossible.
Yep. Did they have any sort of graduation ceremony when you graduated the program? And if so, what did that entail?
I feel like they did, but I don't remember it. I feel like they always like had a ceremony when someone was graduating, but I don't remember mine.
Okay,
because I remember other people graduating and them having like a ceremony.
You don't remember them crowd surfing anybody, do you?
What's that?
Like lifting somebody up above your head and like they do at concerts, like crowd surfing.
Oh no.
Okay, I think that was unique to Spring Creek Lodge, but
yeah, we did not do that.
Let's talk about reintegration into society. What happened when you went home? What have you struggled with the most as a result of the program?
When I went home, I was in a completely different, like I grew up in the country. My mom had moved to the city, so that had nothing to do with the program. That was just a change because I had been gone so long, so much had changed. From 2000 to 2002, we came out with cell phones. There was no such thing as a cell phone when I went in, and there were cell phones when I got out. So that was like I was like, I was blown away. And digital cameras also came out. Like it was only the cameras you brought and had the film made. So there were like technical things that I didn't understand. And then I moved to a city. So I'm living in a city instead of the country. I don't know anybody. I've never been to this high school, and I'm in the middle of 10th grade, not the beginning, in the middle of 10th grade. So that was really, really hard for me. My mom and I had the, I think when you graduate, you make this program at home where there's like rules
life
and
contract.
Stuff. Yes, the life contract. That lasted a week. That was not, my mom nor me wanted to uphold any of that. And then, I mean, things were okay at first, but I think the biggest thing for me was that I did not trust my mom. I was still only 15 years old. I had 3 more years before I was 18. And the fear of going back to the program was still like, I could be sent back for 3 more years. I can't, like people who went in at 17, they're like, you got to get through 6 months and you can walk out of here. Like I had 3 years left. So I was very, very scared of my mom. I was scared that I had no idea she didn't pay any of this. I thought she had plenty of money. She had been paying for this the whole time. So I had no idea I didn't know that the fact that she couldn't send me back was a thing. I thought she could just send me right back and I would be right back in there. So I was pretty good for a while. And then I met my kid's dad, who was also an adult and I was a kid. I was like 16 or 17 and he was like 22 or 23. And I think the biggest thing for me was that I clung on to him because I did not trust my mom. Like, I needed someone else to cling on to because, like, my family was not going to be it. So I think that was the biggest thing for me. I did not, like, I had my first kid at 18. He was a drug addict. Like, it was a mess. I mean, it was a mess.
Your first kid was a drug addict?
No, my kid's father was.
Oh, okay.
Like, I didn't really have a standard to, like, I was willing to cling on to whoever was willing to have me, if that makes any sense, because I did not have a stable home at home.
Yeah.
Or at least I didn't think. Like, my mom was stable. My mom had money. Like, it was stable, but like, I didn't feel stable because I felt like I was just going to get sent away again if I did anything wrong. So I mean, I think I moved out of my house by the time I was 17 years old, and then I had my first kid at 18, second one at 25, and pretty quickly, I think 19, I started doing drugs and drinking, and I started drinking really, really heavily when I was 25, and then I got sober when I was 30. But I don't know if that would have, I can't say that I would have ended up like that if I wasn't in the program. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe I would have always been one. I don't know. But I know that the fact that I clung on to somebody so heavily was because I didn't trust my mom because of the program.
Okay. And what have you struggled with the most as a result of the program?
I think the thing that I've struggled with the most is that I really honestly believed that there was something wrong with me. Like, that program wasn't a bad place. I was a bad person. And so it honestly, like, I did, as I got into like adulthood, I did kind of go, oh, that place was kind of messed up. That place was kind of crazy. I had a relationship with one of the staff members who was 12 years older than me. Like, that's obviously wrong. Because, like, as I got up in adult age, I was like, oh, I'm 28. I wouldn't sleep with a 16-year-old. You know what I'm saying? Like, this seems, I didn't realize it was wrong until I reached that age. But it wasn't really, really until the documentary came out, I was like, oh, this whole system was messed up. It wasn't special because it was South Carolina. It wasn't special because it was Costa Rica. There's hundreds of kids that didn't. I thought I was the only one who ever went to the program that never did drugs and never drank. There's hundreds of kids that never drank and ended up in the program. I mean, I think one of the kids that got physically abused was 12 years old, you know? So it was like, oh, these people are messed up. And so I think the biggest struggle I had was that I always felt like there was something wrong with me. Not only because that's what they told you in the program, but because why would your parent go through that extreme measure if there wasn't something seriously, like, I have 2 kids. There's no way I would send them away. That would be my last resort if I thought they were going to die. And that's the thing, is they had these people convinced that we were going to die if we didn't go into the program, you know? I think so my grandmother Googled it, or whatever it was, Ask Jeeves. I don't know what it was back then. She searched it on the internet. Of course, it was the first thing that popped up. And after watching the program and the documentary and seeing the other side, I said, the minute my mom called, I was screwed. Because it didn't matter what they told what my mom told them my problem was. I was going to die if I didn't go in the program. Yeah. So I think that was kind of the issue, is that it didn't matter. They weren't going to be like, oh, well, your daughter is only dealing with these issues. We don't think this is going to be appropriate for them. They were going to take whoever was willing to pay.
Yeah. If you could go back in a time machine and not go through these places, knowing what you know now, would you do it, and why?
If I could go back in a time machine and not go?
Knowing what you know now.
No, I would go. And the reason I say that is because I like who I am. And as bad as the experiences that I had, I think I have a tough skin because of it. And I don't know what I would be like if I didn't go to the program, but I have resilience that not a lot of people have. And I think that comes with being forced to have resilience. You know what I'm saying? I think some of these people, now I do think it's sad. I see a lot of people that went to the program that are struggling with drugs and alcohol today, and some that aren't still alive, you know, but for me, I don't think that I would take anything back because it made me who I am today, and I'm happy with who I am today, you know.
Okay.
I'd never send a kid there though, knowing what I know.
Okay. And where are you with your parents? Have you talked to them about how the program affected you? Have they watched the program? Have you talked to your kids about what happened to you? Are you going to?
My mom and my relationship, my dad never agreed with it. They cut my dad off while I was in the program because my dad would not talk good about the program. So my dad hated it. My dad never liked that I went there. They were divorced, you know, and he died when I was 19. But my mom and I've forgiven my mom, and my mom feels terrible. When my mom watched that program, she felt horrible. And I don't know, I'm a parent, and I don't know what it would be like if I honestly thought I was helping my kid and then find out that this place was just this huge scam. So I feel terrible for her, but that we'll never be close. And I think it's because from 13 to 15, you go through a lot of changes. Like that's your developmental time. Any of these kids, 16, 17, no matter what age you went in there, if you were a teenager, that's a huge developmental time. And I think when you're without your parents during that time, it's really hard to have any sort of a relationship after that. I love her. I'm going to take care of her. I do take care of her, but we're never going to be close. And I'm okay with that, you know, as long as she knows, hey, you know, this wasn't a great place. I'm glad she got to see it and got to see the other side of it, because when you're a bad kid and you come home and say this place was terrible, it's not really believable, you know.
Yeah.
And my kids know about it, and my kids, well, I have one that loves her grandmother. She doesn't know anything. I have one that will be 18 next month, and she knows everything. And she doesn't really like my mom, rightfully so. And even my husband watched the program, and he didn't even want to talk to my mom after that. Like he had a really hard time. You know, I had to explain to him, if I've forgiven her, you know, that's all that really matters. But he didn't want to talk to her after he saw it, you know. And I get it. I understand. And my daughter feels the same way. My daughter won't watch it, and I don't blame her. I wouldn't want her to watch it, but she knows about it, and she knows that my mom sent me away, and so she doesn't really have a close relationship with her grandmother either.
Okay. And let's see. What do you think would have helped you instead of being sent away?
Being listened to, I think, would have helped me. I think the biggest issue, I don't think that they went into this W.W.A.S.P program with ill intentions. I think they went into it because they wanted to help kids, and then money got involved. And then when money gets involved, everything gets screwed up, because now they're just taking any kid, and they're just, you know, but I think that was the biggest thing, is that we were just like, it was like, no. This isn't a bad place. This is a good place. You know, like we weren't listened to. We were told what to think, feel, and how to act. And I think if, you know, we got listened to, especially the kids who did have drug and alcohol problems before they went in there. I can't imagine being an addict and being in there.
Or going through withdrawal. Yeah, fuck that.
Or going through withdrawal, or, you know, like I am an alcoholic. I am a drug addict. I've been sober for 7 years. And the way I got sober was a very gentle way. I can't imagine trying to get sober in the program. That would be insane. And if people, you know, I had actually during my process of getting sober, we wrote down all of our resentments. And obviously my biggest resentment was getting sent away. And even during that process, I was told that the place was just there to help. And I couldn't see that. And I was like, no, like I just did, like when you're just like not listened to, you just shove your own feelings down. And you're like, you're right. That place was there to help. And I'm just crazy. I think these kids they need someone to listen to them and be like, oh, I can understand. Everybody wants to feel understood.
Yeah.
That's why all these kids, when the program came out, they all came out of the woodwork, and they're all in these Facebook groups, and they're all telling their story and telling their experience because they just want to be listened to, and they want to be told that they're valid. It's a human nature.
Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything else you want people to know about your program, or anything else that you might tell a parent thinking about sending their kid to a place like this?
Try anything else. Try anything. I don't know if they're still running or if they're running at the capacity that they were when I went there. But if you can't talk to your kids, that's a problem. I think that's red flag number 1.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And if you ever want to do part 2, just take some notes down about what you want to talk about and reach out, and we'll make it happen. And if you've watched so far on the video, please make sure you like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment down below so we can get to know you. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.